engage with asset management on a practical level is significantly lower. For example, McKinsey Investments lost case competition with the university within 2021. That's 4 years since the last time you actually engaged with the uni on a practical level. Now, we know what engagement looks like, but what further factors are actually preventing individuals from considering and actually engaging with joining asset management? Well, to do this, we can look at what the key needs are of women. Now, more specifically, we can see that 67% of females in finance hesitate to actually enter the industry due to the belief that they're a lot less likely to be promoted and advance in their career, and 59% of female students in finance do not enter the industry as there's a perception of little support from other women and mentorship opportunities. Thus, we have two key strategic implications that we must consider as we move forward in creating the perfect strategy. Where one, we must enable young women to see how women do indeed advance to more senior positions, and two, we must provide greater mentorship opportunities for more senior female employees. Now, if we take a look at these two key strategic implications, there's one thing that is required to bring the two together, and that specifically, it requires you to actually have a strong existing and retained female employee base to begin with. Thus, we can change our two initial questions and change the order to instead focusing on one, retaining, and secondly, recruiting. As in order to effectively recruit them, you must have a strong employee base to ensure that they are there to support them to begin with, from top to down. Thus, Stephanie, how can McKinsey Investments first retain the 40% of women on your existing leadership board prior to even starting recruitment?
Thanks, Nicole. So at the moment, we have two key questions that we must answer, which is stated here, and Brenda can go into our introduction slide.
Sorry, guys. And so that leads us to our strategy. We're so excited to present Investing in Her, a two-pronged strategy focused on retention and recruitment, allowing a top-down approach focusing on A, your business model, and ensuring that new female students have role models within the industry that they can look up to in order to enter asset management without any barriers to recruitment. So Stephanie, what does this look like for retention?
Thanks, Verenia. So at the moment, you've found that there are three key issues that your female employees are currently undergoing. The first being that 75% of female employees in the finance industry at the moment have no access or very limited access to sponsorship and mentorship in general. Secondly, we've also found a key issue of 68% of women in asset management believing that gender bias influences their promotion decisions and as a result their career development within the industry. And thirdly, another key issue which you have given us is that there are industry-side difficulties in balancing work and family responsibilities. All of the females within the workplace must choose between having a family, planning, and also having to progress within their career in the finance industry. So as a result, we must answer the question, by tackling these key issues, how can we actually fully release the potential of all female employees, drive career progression, and hence enhance overall retention within the asset management industry? So how do we do that? As much as you like to invest in companies, we also want to invest in her, the her of your company. Sorry about that. So we want to eventually mentor, develop, and grow. And that's why we introduced to Investing in Her, where women can mentor, develop, and grow through our strategy. So how do we mentor? By mentoring individuals, we thought that we could connect women within your company with further leadership roles so that they are not just stagnant within the people within their team, but they can reach out to other women within other teams as well. We also want to develop our strategy by ensuring that everyone has equal access to the career building opportunities. And thirdly, we also wish to grow individuals where women can feel empowered in the workplace. So what does this actually look like? So at the moment, we looked at some case studies on the competitive landscape. One of the key companies that are doing really well with their current women in power base is the RBC Bank. What they have is three key programs at the moment. The first being the Women's Advisory Board, the second being the IA Lead Program, and the third being the IA Mentorship Program. But I want to draw your attention to the Women's Advisory Board. What it actually looks like is that it is a forum for women advisors across the country to be organized into a biannual symposium where they can network with each other. The other thing they have is a lead program, which we already have as a company, and the third being the mentorship program, where they can introduce their individuals with other people and other teams that they can be mentored with each other. But what if I told you we, as a company, could actually combine all of these into a singular prong, and that is Invest in Her. So the first part would be the mentorship opportunity. What it would look like is that at the moment you have 21 financial investment professionals in your company at the moment. And as a result, what it would look like is that firstly, individuals will be given an invitation through Microsoft Teams or whatever software you use at your current firm to enter the symposium, which will be held at one of the rooms within your firm. Once you arrive there, you'll be able to be discussed and engaged with many of the other individuals, all being women from the firm. This gives you the opportunity to bridge that gap between going out of women within that's currently in your team and meeting women from the others as well. When you're there, you can have discussions and engagement. What we'll have is we'll have themed sessions. The first session will be on ESG and sustainability. We found that this was a key issue that a lot of women feel very empowered and happy to speak about, and that would be one of the themes. Another thing we also thought of would be maternity leave and also work-life balance. We thought that by creating this safe space for women, for power in numbers, would be a great opportunity for women to feel space, to have their voices heard, and any of their problems which they may not be able to speak out in the workplace before can be heard here. And as a result, you're able to discuss and engage in this room and also have mentorship and collaboration by meeting people outside of your current team, and as a result have insights and development to grow your career. And how do we actually do this? We develop, we grow, and this is what it would look like in the end of the day. And as a result, what this actually creates is that it will go from 74% to 90% job satisfaction, as women are now feeling more empowered to ask other females about the same situations that they will undergo, and it will also be 43% to 31% of turnover rate as a result of women feeling safe in the workplace or meeting other females as well. So overall, we have investing in her, which helps you mentor, develop, and grow.
So far, Steph has covered our top-down approach to a symposium instilled within your wealth management firm, allowing your top talent within your firm to excel and hence set a benchmark and as a role models for current students who wish to enter the asset management industry. But now we look towards mentorship for those students through your current program, allowing that top-down approach to transcend beyond into universities, allowing your top talent to mentor our students. So what is the rationale behind actually mentoring students in the first place? A, you attract an underrepresented female talent pool who currently study finance but who wish to enter the asset management industry but cannot due to certain barriers. Second, we allow for shining a guiding light for female students. If there are mentors and role models within the current industry, they're more motivated to enter the industry because they know what their future will look like. And finally, amending under-sponsored students. We see that your current firm and other firms are investing in students, but they do not allow for advocacy. Students cannot cross that extra mile, allowing them to enter the industry, and hence we want to focus on mentoring. And so how will we showcase this? Through a one-on-two mentoring program that is unlocked through a case competition portal. We will run McKinsey Investment Asset Management competition in multiple Canadian firms. What this will look like is an undergraduate female business competition with a case release run to students across undergraduate business schools in Canada. We will attract the top 20 to 30 students who come up with the best investment theses and investment rationale for a particular investment of choice, and hence this allows them to access mentorship through the McKinsey investment pool and increase familiarity with the industry of asset management, and also remove those barriers that they currently face through a very male-dominated industry. And what does the incentive look like for both current universities and McKinsey Investments? We see that for McKinsey Investments, there's a greater attraction to current female students within the business pool. We see that currently there's a lot of female students. Around 68% of business students in Canada are actually female. However, there is a very low translation rate, to around only 12% into the asset management industry, as opposed to other industries such as banking. We see that A, there is a barrier to entry because it's so male dominated. B, they feel scared to enter this industry because they don't know what their job and what their career development will actually look like. Hence, we want to improve access and hence drive these recruitment rates. And finally, we access a greater talent pool of students. We want to ensure that McKinsey has access to the top talent, not only in certain universities, such as Western University, where you have piloted the WAM program, but across Canada and across the undergraduate business programs. And hence, accessing that talent pool is our utmost priority. Now, for Canadian undergraduate business schools, we ensure that we're going to focus on student-run clubs, such as the WAM, a club that you've targeted in Western University. We ensure greater sign-ups for their clubs and greater attraction to the clubs within the Canadian universities. Second, there's an increased club value if you're partnering with wealth management firms such as McKinsey Investments. And finally, getting students access to real-life ways of investing and real-life case scenarios where they can apply what they learn within the university classrooms to a real-life scenario. And hence, the impacts for us are clear. We see 696 student sign-ups to the mentorship, to the case competitions and hence the mentorship program by 2030, and a 46% conversion rate from your current talent pool to graduate applications by that same year. And so, Alan, how do we poise ourselves for future success?
Thank you. Now, as you empower women, let me power you through the timeline that this will look to take. Our team has constructed the following timeline and broke it down into 3 key areas: planning, construction, and launch. And I want to point to you 3 key wings. That is our strategic hires, our initial marketing, and our blueprinting expansion. Now, with the strategic hires, we understand our recruitment requires a strong approach. There is a strong need for talent in really ensuring that in creating a cohesive forum, there needs to be that HR talent in place that assists this. Then it's that initial marketing. For our retention and recruitment side, we know that this campus competition really requires strong marketing through our social media and university channels. And finally, is blueprinting our expansion. We know you have 16 boutiques under your name, and we want to create a replicable model across all 16 of them and really push for that in the 2029 to 2030 stage. Now, how do we actually measure the success of this? We look to have an increase in job satisfaction by 16% and 320 graduate applications. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, Alan, this all sounds great, but what does this cost look like? We can expect an upfront capex of $96,000, and this is largely driven by 3 key areas. That is our HR staff, ensuring that we have a sufficient coordinator. Then it's our initial marketing that's expected to cost around $20,000, and finally our merchandise. We understand there is an aspect and value to implicit marketing, ensuring that McKinsey Investment isn't just known as a wealth management fund, but is known implicitly all around as a great workplace to invest in yourself. Now, in terms of our operating costs, what we can anticipate is $24,000 in annual OPEX, and this is largely driven by keynote speakers, food and beverages, and advertising promotions. We understand in these forums, the value has to be clear. There has to be people in there that are in place to help influence and inspire these female individuals to understand what is the development, what is the progression, and what does the job entail. As soon as that value is clear, we understand that there need to be key speakers in there really pushing and driving that agenda. And then, of course, as you're in these forums, it's important. You spend time and aren't just taking the opportunity to understand your workplace, but also connect socially with your colleagues, which is why we have our food and beverages. All in all, what we can expect from this program is strong flow-on effects. The application pool that comes from recruitment is a strong 700 students reached by 2030 with a 6% steady annual growth rate. Now, of course, with any big strategy comes risk. And our team has identified the following 4, but I really want to point out the top 2. That is the perception of tokenism. What we want to do is ensure this isn't just a HR fluff. We aren't just putting this in place to ensure that we meet some quotas. This is beyond this. We are investing in her. That's why we want to make the value clear. We have clear, measurable, successful KPIs that can show us that this program is effective in not only targeting colleagues existingly, but creating an effective pipeline through universities. We want to ensure that this think tank isn't just positioned as an integral part of the firm, but is company-wide across all 16 boutiques. And secondly, it's that gender discrimination. We don't want anyone to feel left out from this program, which is why the beauty of it is its scalability, ensuring that we don't just create this within the female section, but we can expand this company-wide and follow a similar model for the entire company. Now, I want to kind of wrap things together and explain the value. All in all, things are clear. You're in a space where everything is perfect, and you come in a position where females have come with their barriers and they require that last little push to really ensure in wealth management they come together. That's why when we invest in her through both the recruitment and the retention, we come and we face a strategy that lets us kind of holistically improve the investment we provide for her. Thank you, and we're now open for questions.
Sure. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice presentation. Just curious, when you're talking about the retention strategy, your focus is really on the mentorship. Have you looked beyond the mentorship? Like, if we're looking to retain, what about extending vacation, extending, work-life balance? That doesn't seem to be an element that's really tackled here as part one, and I guess as part two of my question is, be like with that, the investment, although very reasonable, seems incredibly small. Like, why so little? Why not expand your horizon and go bolder?
Yeah, of course, I'll answer the first question, which is about the work-life balance and all of the topics that will be discussed. At each of the sessions, these will be held quarterly throughout the year. So in the first session, they will have a specific theme, which all the females will enter and discuss. So one of those could be work-life balance. So that session will usually last about 2 hours, and within those 2 hours, we'll have a panel of speakers, different women volunteering for each session. So whether this be some of the senior managers or whether this be some of the graduates as well, there will be a range of individuals who are women within the current company within your current company that will be the speakers, and overall will be speaking towards the topic that is assigned for that session. So one session could be on work-life balance, another could be on maternity leave, another could be on balancing gender discrimination in the workplace. These will be the topics that will be discussed in these sessions will essentially be ones that are quite stigmatized and where individuals and women in the workplace can't really speak out to anyone about, or they might be quite scared to reach out to anyone or speak out their voice as a result of the workplace. And Nicole will go into this.
To add on to that very quickly, I believe you're alerting to more tangible benefits that you could actually provide and retain individuals.
Yeah.
We see that Mackenzie Investments already covers that quite well, specifically in your maternity leave scheme. We see that covers the monetary aspect very well. However, we're noticing that a lot of employees nowadays require more than just monetary or tangible benefits in order to stay at a firm, and hence why we really gravitated away from that and towards a more intangible strategy through connections and through mentorship, as opposed to one just focused on monetary benefits.
So as part of the result of these sessions, there'll be some actionable, concretable, like they'll walk away with something. The panels will talk, but how does that go to where does that go after that?
Happy to touch on that. So in terms of the intangible benefits that both Nick and Steph just mentioned, we see that the main purpose of having a retention strategy is to drive the company culture for women, and hence empower women later on through the recruitment cycle for women by women. We want to ensure that those that are coming through the recruitment cycles actually have a pathway and actually ensure that they know what they're getting into in asset management. It's a male-dominated industry. They don't know what their career pathway is going to look like. With an executive board of around 40% with Mackenzie Investment, you've made significant strides. However, if we look at the playbook for other companies, we only see around 5 to 10% of the asset management industry executive board being females. And hence, if there's no career progression and there's no actual pathway for them, that is an incentive away from actually going towards the asset management industry. And hence, that alludes to our recruitment strategy, which is allowing that cascading effect for retention into recruitment for that mentoring program. And so if women are involved in these case competitions and judging these case competition panels, these female students are more inspired and more innovative, and I guess will apply to recruit for wealth management.
So I'm going to piggyback off of what he said regarding retention. And you've discussed about a session, but knowing that this organization is also a for-profit organization, how do you then address a potential career gap because of a parental leave, for example, to ensure that you continuously remain viable as an organization, knowing that there will be those gaps? So what would be your strategy to address that?
Happy to take that. When we consider wealth management, we consider a very simple solution, which is the client and the investor. In terms of the client, we understand that female clients are usually driving for female investors because of the decision and the rationale. We say that sustainability, ESG are key incentives for our clients and the client relationships. When one of our employees goes on maternity leave and takes that time off, they're not losing that client and investor relationship. And we see that even with a 9-month to 12-month gap, that client is coming back to that same person because of that investment rationale. And that is one of the key drivers, and that is one of the main reasons we see that we're not going to lose our client and investor relationship. And so answering your question, we see that there's a strong enough incentive for women into the workforce. If we are able to get women into the workforce and get women recruited, there's a strong enough rationale for our clients to go with the women, and hence we don't see that as a big barrier in the future.
I'm going to ask you more of a marketing question. So you talked about how you get this program out. There were some numbers about, you know, investment that would be required, but can you extend a little bit more about how do you promote this and make it known from an internal perspective, so the impact on your employer brand, but as well, how do you make sure that you get the attendance and the visibility externally that will have an impact on the McKinsey brand externally?
Sure, I'm happy to touch on the McKinsey portal as one of the key drivers for actually raising awareness for this marketing. We understand that the McKinsey portal is not only for internal members, but actually those who consider asset management, those females who consider asset management as an option as a career pathway. If we start by piloting these seminars within our firm internally, and then drive awareness of those on our McKinsey platform, we can actually showcase what we're doing internally, and we can showcase the incentives for why we are a leading firm and creating a playbook that is replicable for other companies. And so similar to RBC and similar to following in their footsteps, we want to understand the worldview, and we want to understand how we can drive change. And so that marketing then flows through for two key stakeholders: A, potential recruits, and B, clients. For our potential recruits, they understand that women are being treated well within the industry. They understand there is a career pathway for them, which I touched on earlier. But for our clients in particular, we understand that some clients prefer female investors because of the sustainability and ESG initiatives. And hence for marketing, we understand that those two stakeholders will be targeted, and we will raise awareness of them through that channel.
To quickly add on to that from a female perspective, as someone who's in a more male-dominant industry myself, I find it's actually word of mouth is actually one of the biggest internal marketing strategies we can rely on. Personally, for me and myself, when I know that there's a smaller demographic of women in the workplace, I tend to gravitate towards them and want to initiate those connections with myself. And with that, there's a high possibility that me going to Steph and telling her about this new program that's come in, that's also something that's really effective that we can rely on.
Two questions. The first one is it pertains more on your retaining your talent, right? So in terms of retaining, one of the barriers you had mentioned is, you know, women leaving the workforce for, you know, in terms of childbearing. Have you considered potentially also offering similar benefits for the father or the other partner, let's say, because, you know, bearing a child is not just a one-person process.
Sure.
So have you considered that in terms of how do we mitigate the risk of women thinking, well, if I'm going to have the children, maybe I'm going to have my career path shortened?
Sure. When we were considering our research, we tried to find out what exactly McKinsey Investments currently did, and we found one key thing that they did in particular, which was the maternity match. The Canadian government currently provides incentives for maternity leave, and what McKinsey Investments does really well is match the exact same incentive on their end, hence doubling the amount of protection and amount of investment into our current talent. And what we found was that on the paternal side, that these paternal, a lot of the time, around 80 to 90%, the male in the household is also working, and so that also alleviates the pressures there, whether that be childcare or childbearing. And so we understand that that could be a key risk in terms of actually investing in the children and investing in the parents as well. But since McKinsey Investments does that so well, we see that A, that's replicable by other firms who wish to further the governance initiatives and further that rationale. But second, we see that the incentive here is that we want to focus on the recruitment and driving recruitment and the talent pool, and hence this is our main incentive.
In terms of the selection process on the recruitment end,
Sure.
How do you make sure that there's no biases towards women? So walk me through the selection process.
1 minute warning, by the way. Last question, please.
Yeah. In terms of the recruitment, ensuring bias, I understand. So that's why we have our case competition set in place, which allows the top talent to get through. Our case competition, sorry, the slide's not up, but the case competition is very simple. We will ensure investment rationale for any company of choice. 3 key investment rationale, no financial pitch required. Hence, not a lot of expertise is required, but just an interest in the finance industry. Once those 3 investment rationale are clearly dictated, those will be sent to McKinsey investment professionals, who will then look at this case as well as the student-run organization and choose the top 20 to 30 candidates, and hence ensuring no bias along that whole process. Only the top talent is selected based on how well they perform, and hence the incentive is clear for both Mackenzie and those students and the schools.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, so one of the criteria we considered for the candidates that we would look to select in the program isn't necessarily how good their pitch is, it's also the passion. We understand it's an underrepresented industry and we really want to push for creating a balanced and safe space that is well diversified, and we want to ensure that having a standard criterion across all of our candidates ensure that we really reduce any biases.
The Q&A period is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I'll ask everyone to leave the room so we can go on with the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Melinda. I'm the Director of Marketing for IG part as well at IG.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul. I'm Strategy Manager for Scotiabank here in Quebec.
I'm sure you all had your dream career growing up, and maybe it's not exactly what you were doing today. Hunter, what was yours?
I really wanted to work in private equity for all my life.
And Ben?
Investment banking after my dad.
Those are some crazy dreams as a 7-year-old. Maya, what was yours?
I wanted to be a business owner, just like my dad.
Just like your dad. And now, my dream was maybe a little crazier. I wanted to be CFO of Disney Princesses. Now, I'm standing here today, and unfortunately, I have to share that I'm not CFO of Disney Princesses, but I'm also not pursuing a career in finance. Now, that was something that I was always really interested in, just as my colleagues were. But when I went into that second level of the finance class, and I looked around the room, and there was one other girl sitting there, it all became a little bit overwhelming. And so I switched into something else. Now, I'm passionate about what I'm doing, but again, it's not finance. So let's talk today about how you can empower more females, more young girls to enter finance at Mackenzie Investments. Good morning. My name is Maddie, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Hunter, Ben, and Maya, who you've already met. And we're here today making up Dynamite Consulting to talk about how you can empower women in investment banking, or in asset management, I should say, at Mackenzie Investments. Now with this, we've identified 3 key tasks that we're going to tackle today. The first being, how can you build that sustainable recruitment pipeline of talented women? Then, what programs are going to bolster that female retention and help them to be promoted into your executive leadership? And then, how can you empower the next generation of young females for the long term? So it's not just that quick fix today. Now the strategy that we're excited to present is called the Future of Mackenzie Investments. We're going to break it down into an exciting mocked fund management competition. Then talk about the opt-in phenomenon on how you can encourage females to be promoted within the company. And then we'll talk about addressing those life changes with a la carte benefits. Now I'll start off by walking you through some analysis. Then Maya will pop in, and then Hunter and Ben are going to go through our strategy and implementation. So first, we want to take you through what a journey map may look like right now for one of those students starting off as a business student. Now we know right now that females are represented very well as business students. And when selecting that major, it looks a little bit different. So let's talk about where that barrier may be. Now right now, it's 25.7% as a proportion of females as compared to males who are finance majors. So that's one main barrier, is why are females not choosing the finance major? And that's what we want to talk about today. Next up, we're talking about those internships and entry-level positions, the first touch point with Mackenzie Investments, and what's important here. Now, what are the key questions that any young student or graduate is going to be asking? And that's at recruitment fairs, that's with different people that they're going to be meeting. Well, it's going to be which career path are they going to choose within finance, because there are so many different opportunities. And then, what does their journey look like from starting off that original internship all the way to executive leadership? What's that long-term career path? What company should they work for? Is it going to be sustainable in terms of work-life balance? And the big one, what is an asset manager? And what do I do in a day as an asset manager? Questions that those junior level analysts may be able to answer a little bit better than that high level, this is what Mackenzie Investments does. So we'll also walk you through a little bit of how to address that barrier and answer those questions. Now, next up, as your life changes, and we have some of those individuals moving up into mid-level management or senior management, or again, that executive leadership, there's a couple different barriers that come up. You're now aware of the company, you know how it works, but how do you actually get that promotion? Well, one study we wanted to talk about today, produced by the Harvard Kennedy School of Public Policy, states that interventions to reduce gender disparities that encourage women to lean into getting a new promotion, or have unconscious bias training or diversity training, actually fail to show consistent positive results. Now, that's not to say that those aren't important, but they must be matched with something. Now, one thing that they found that we'll talk about as well in terms of promotions is the opt-in phenomenon. Now, the opt-in phenomenon means that when I want to get a promotion, it's not that I have to put my name forward and say, I'm ready for this promotion. It's that all 4 of us who are equally qualified are all going to be equally considered for that promotion. And then, if you're not interested, instead opting out. And again, we'll talk about what that actually looks like during our implementation. And then, as well, you want to be able to address those life changes. Where you're at as in an entry-level position and where you are at in terms of maybe having a family later on down the road in mid-level management is going to look different. And your needs for benefits are also going to change. providing that appropriate coaching. Again, like we talked about, not just having that high level executive leadership coaching, but also actionable insights from junior associates or analysts who have just gone through the same process that you have. And then again, relevant responsibilities and having those outlined is going to be important in terms of conducting a needs analysis to ensure that females and males are both gaining those relevant skills through the work that they're actually doing. So I'd like to pass it off to Maya to talk about what some of your current actions look like.
So we know that you are already a leader in the industry of having that large engagement of empowering women in finance, but above average isn't good enough for you. You want to be the leader, the trailblazer. And so we're going to walk through the current initiatives that you have and kind of where they position, and then go through where the opportunities are. So right now you're hosting those student events, like the case competitions, recruitment events, and getting involved with the student population. And that does have a high attraction rate, and it is very student-facing. And then your Women in Asset Management program at Ivy is a very successful program that we think is an excellent opportunity for you to be attracting, especially with your student population. You have the mentorship, you're giving them those education modules, and then offering them the 10 to 12-week internship. Now to look more into employee-facing initiatives, the United Nations Women Empowerment that you signed on to, and you were one of the first to do that. That just demonstrates your incredible commitment to building those relationships, establishing support, and going through the proper training. And so we think that you have an excellent footing in this industry and this area of attracting new employees, as well as the Mackenzie Together Charitable Foundation, where you're giving back to the community. We think that's an excellent initiative that you're doing to ensure that your employees are being attracted, and then also retaining them because they can have that hands-on experience with the community. And next, retaining your employees. So your Women's Resource Group is an excellent resource for your employees. And then again, matching the government's top-up. Right now, only up to 55% of their actual salary is being covered, but by you offering to top that up, we think that that's a very, very good opportunity that you guys are already doing, and you should continue that. But now the question is, where are the opportunities that will complement and enhance your existing initiatives? And we see that first as a student-facing and retaining those students. And that's through long-term student engagement, of having internships, and that real hands-on experience so that they can see exactly what it's like to be a woman in finance. And next, bridging the gap between the students and employees. Because we see right now that there isn't something that's exactly connecting those two, but we see that as doing student-to-employee mentorship. That's going to bridge the gap through direct engagement and experience that they're going to be able to transfer into their actual career. So now I'll pass it over to Ben to introduce you to our strategy today.
Thank you, Maya and Maddie, for those insightful analyses. But now we'd like to talk about how we've taken those analyses and formed our solution of the future of Mackenzie investments, attracting top female talent to attract and retain female clients. So we split it up into two prongs. First up, bottom up. How do we attract different students within university to come and join Mackenzie Investments through a long-term initiative of mock fund management and reviewing job postings? Our next prong is top-down. So how do you work at the top level of the organization and provide benefits and retention incentives for the employees at Mackenzie Investments, specifically women? I'll pass off to Maya and Hunter now to dive further into the bottom-up strategy.
Perfect. So for the bottom-up strategy, we outlined it into 3 key steps here. First is going to be attract, how we can be seen by these first and second year students, because your existing programs are already targeting those later age students, and we really see the gap of addressing students that are new to business school and maybe interested in finance, and then breaking those barriers for them to enter the industry. We know that there's not a lot of internship opportunities available to first and second year students, and so this is an excellent opportunity for you here today to jump on that and introduce these new women in finance opportunities. So attracting these young students to join the fund management program, which Hunter will talk about more in detail, I want to walk through how you can attract this. So you can use your current channels, things you're already doing, like promoting at your existing initiatives, for the on-campus recruitment, like the case competitions, recruitment cycles, and those events. And then also doing shared posts with the universities on LinkedIn and Instagram, because then you have like double the attraction and the viewership, and it's also a trusted resource. Next is additional promotions. So you can do paid marketing on different newsletters that students are already subscribed to, especially the ones that have the high female engagement, having personalized content that is relatable to those female students. And finally, targeting those in-person classroom sessions, because different professors and lecturers are always looking for guest activities and lectures to get involved in. And so this is an excellent opportunity because you're so well known that you can get involved and then promote the new fund. And the key consideration here is to ensure that your marketing strategy does evolve with industry trends and follows what students are interested in. And now this is just an example from our source of the Harvard Kennedy School of Public Policy, just to ensure that you're using the right verbiage when you're creating these different marketing materials, the job postings, so it is attractive, accessible, and there's no barriers to entry when you're creating these promotions.
Now, Maddie and Maya walked you through some of the pain points in the analysis, some of the pain points with student recruitment, and how do you actually recruit students that will be with your company for the long term. So I'll dive into that and a whole recruitment strategy, starting in university and bringing them into full-time roles. So what is this? Well, we are recommending that you go ahead with a portfolio management competition. Now, the strategy behind this is you encourage female students in university in their first or second year that might be scared of finance, might not want to reach out and learn about finance, through a welcoming, learning, hands-on experience. This incentivizes females to really get their hands on and learn about the portfolio management experience, a fundamental process in finance. So moving on into a bit further detail of what this really is. Well, this would be an 8-month process. We think that 8 months is the ideal time. You can set up a portfolio, you can manage it, and you can see returns over that period while also looking at some of the key metrics that fund managers would actually review. So what are the key steps in this? Well, we recommend that you go ahead with around 25 students. Now, these are from all the universities across Canada. So this might be your Queen's, your Western, your University of British Columbia, all throughout Canada, as we know there's tons of excellent talent in all of these schools. These will be teams of 4 from each university that actually go ahead and get into this program. It'll be a quick interview process, but nothing super extraneous. And the successful applicants will then go into the program. They'll receive an online orientation. This orientation will pair them with a mentor. This mentor will be a hands-on guide that walks them through the whole 8-month process, and they're their step-in-step throughout everything. That's who they learn through mostly. Additionally, the program will kick off in February. The recruitment will happen in January, but the program will kick off in February, and it'll be 10 months there, or it'll be 8 to 10 months thereafter, which ends in about December. Now, at December, the fund will really wrap up, and all these students can come together and look at their shared learnings. Through this, they'll have learned fundamental finance skills. How do you pick stocks? How do you manage a portfolio? How do you manage risk with different industries? How do you manage geopolitical effects in the news impacting your portfolio? And how will clients react to this prospective, again, fake money portfolio? And again, this will be around a $1 million fake portfolio. Now, moving on further, what happens at the end of this competition? Well, students will be awarded. They'll be incentivized. Yes, this is a big commitment. This is an 8 to 10 to 12-month program, depending on how you want to lay it out. But what do students need? Well, a lot of students are really in search of finances. A lot of students are putting themselves through university. They're scraped low on finances. So this gives them the incentive to really stick it through in addition to all the shared learnings. Again, just a recommended prize pool that we've seen through other various similar competitions, and we think that this would work. Now moving on further, Shadow Week. At the end of this, the competition doesn't end at the end in December. In December, you actually go ahead and you invite these students, the ones that make it through the program, attended their mentor meetings, and really made sure that they were an active participant of the program. You invite them out to your Toronto headquarters. We think that this will be around 20 teams, maybe 5 or so teams might drop off from that 25. And these 20 teams will be on a 3-day orientation event at your Toronto office. Now, these are absolutely motivated people that you'll take through the process on the board here. That first day, orientation, what is Mackenzie Investments? And this is really meeting the senior management, the high-level overview, learn about the company and see it's great. But then really where the real value add is getting your hands dirty on what Mackenzie actually does. This is the walk the floor experience. Hands-on learning where students can really walk around. They can meet the real assets team. They can meet the multi-strategies team. They can meet the fixed income portfolio, and they can learn what everyone does in their portfolio and how they really manage risk, manage returns, and give output to shareholders in the end.
And then day 3 will be that final day where you can further explore niche specific teams and also interview. Certain candidates will be selected to interview for your internships, which allows females to be empowered all the way from university through the fund management program all the way to this experience where they can then have an internship opportunity if they're successfully selected. Now again, moving on further to the last part here, retain. I talked a lot about converting this into an internship experience. So what does this look like? Well, we think that through this, you can really hire around greater than 10 female interns through this entire feeder program. Right now, you average around 70-ish interns a year, and we think that this would be a great key performance indicator. Now, how again do we do this? Well, they're selected through that program, you interview them, and then the interns stay in touch with you. Ideally, the ones that are selected go onto their campus. So maybe you have one at UBC, you might have one at Queen's, you might have one at U of T. They go onto their campus and they spread the word. So the benefits just keep revolving and revolving as this program grows. And then that's the end of that.
So we've talked about how you can attract people from the bottom up. So now Ben and I are going to walk through how you can make some changes from the top down. We know you're already doing a lot, but we can go that one step further. So let's first talk a little bit about, again, that opt-in, opt-out system that you can implement. Again, a very easy fix for now to empower those females to be promoted. Now, really what we want to emphasize here from the takeaways of the findings would be that there is that reduction in the gender gap in terms of capitalizing on promotional opportunities when women are automatically opted into promotional opportunities. So let's talk about what that actually means and what that'll look like for you. So the first step is to identify your current state through a needs analysis done by your HR team. We don't currently know what qualifications might be needed to be promoted, what that may look like, and so by having that cross-functional team to evaluate what those metrics may look like, lay them out very cleanly so that it's very clear based on those key stakeholders and their input for that decision criteria. Now, once that's been managed and that needs analysis has been completed, we'll move on to the implementation, where when those promotions become available, because we recognize they're not always available at that specific time frame, and again, an expectation you'd want to set, each qualified candidate is going to be automatically assessed for this promotion. And if they're not interested, they must opt out. Now that third piece is just going to be managing this change, ensuring that you're preparing all of your key stakeholders, those interviewing, those who may be looking towards promotion, for what these changes actually mean, and then monitoring and improving. So I'd like to pass it off to Ben to talk about the benefits program.
Thank you, Maddie. So our benefit program is called a la carte, which is a French term meaning getting to pick from a menu. So you are already very competitive within the industry with the benefits that you offer to your employees, but going forward, we want to make it more tailored and personalized to the individual, and specifically have more benefits towards females so that they feel more valued and want to work at Mackenzie even more. So we'll have a catalog of benefits available to all employees, and employees will select from this catalog and tailor them to their needs with a selected budget that Mackenzie gives them. And this will be across the 13,000 employees of Mackenzie Investments, and will include an additional admin personnel. And why? It's all about increased employee retention, having people wanting to stay at Mackenzie Investments, and decreasing that industry turnover rate from 43 to a lower substantial number. So to give you an example, what the menu would look like would be women in healthcare and fitness, so spin classes and Pilates, and also parental services, all going towards the pain point of retention. And then personalized benefits, so as I mentioned, tailored towards your needs, but it's also cost effective. There's a reduction in overhead costs that different companies will be paying for different plans, but also you're going to be attracting the top talent, which will help meeting that consumer demand that are seeking out top female advisors. And this will lead to a 10% reduction in industry turnover rate for women specific to Mackenzie Investments.
So we know that you want this as a 5-year plan, and we've outlined this here as a resource for you to look at, but we want to outline the key milestones of ensuring that you recruit the mock fund females and having those 100 hired in the first year to test it out, and then of course continuing with that program, assuming that it is successful. And then for the top down, once you introduce the opt-in implementation, that's your opportunity to evaluate with this key milestone.
Yeah, Maddie walked you through the process map at the beginning, and it had a lot of pain points. Now in this end process, it is a seamless process from female university students to really females acting or talking to clients at Mackenzie Investments. Then moving to the next slide, some quick financials. We believe that this will cost around $1.6 million in that first year and $1.2 million in the years thereafter.
Now, we want to highlight one key risk here, being that the benefit prices may increase for those a la carte benefits, as you are working with that external party. but by evaluating the relative benefit, evaluating your employee feedback, and ensuring you have those contracts signed, we're confident that you can mitigate this key risk. Now, what did we talk about today? Well, we talked about how you could empower the next generation of asset managers to be that talented recruitment pipeline for Mackenzie Investments. We did that through the Jmucc Fund Management Program, ensuring you have opt-in promotions and those really cool benefits that Ben just mentioned in terms of choosing those personalized and tailored benefits for your needs. That goes for every employee, whether that be needing more time off or needing additional funding for daycare services. It applies to everybody. So let's talk about the impacts here. Well, there's a variety of qualitative and quantitative ones, but I think the biggest impacts that I want to mention today is, while I may not be the CFO of Disney Princesses, and unfortunately no little girl may be, I think that some little girl may be the future CIO of Mackenzie Investments. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentations. What questions do you have to make the future female?
All right. So, if I was going to give you 4 more hours, what would you do?
I think that with 4 more hours, the biggest thing would be going through the implementation and beefing it out to make sure that it's tailored exactly to the needs of your employees. Now, while we wanted to focus on those females specifically, and as Maya and I know the needs of those females moving up within your company, we want to focus in on those specific tailored needs and address the employee needs of your company. So anyone else may add into that a little bit.
Yeah, just to add on to what Maddie was saying, they're really tailoring and building out the beneficial, or the La Carte program for the employees, making it a more robust program, talking about the different software we can implement and the different type of admin that we can bring on to fully flesh it out. But we have outlined in our costs, but additionally just outlining the different benefits that employees are currently seeking today, depending on their needs.
Can you, can you extend a little bit more what would be required from a business structure and a business resources perspective on top of dollars to bring a project like this to fruition, you know, for the next 5 years?
Absolutely. I can touch on that. So we know that your development team already, you are very interested in developing the Women in Finance stream and this pipeline. And so we want to use those resources that are currently interested in working on the program. And then also, that's how you can kind of spend your time and resources researching how the opt-in, opt-out, sorry, lost my words, the promotions would actually work. And then also with the benefits, making sure that works, and then reaching out to the universities because you already have those existing relationships. And so capitalizing on those at your next meeting with them, you can talk about this new opportunity and how you can do that.
Thank you for your presentation. I like the component of having the junior employee match up with the potential candidate, right? How are you incentivizing the junior employee to give out time to, mentor? What's the incentive program, and how do you make sure also that you're matching the right people? Because you can have 2 people that's interested, but a mentorship program works well only when it matches well.
Absolutely agree on all those points. So I think that as it stands, you have so many amazing employees right now that are incredibly passionate about these projects, and that's why we think that there will be absolutely no problem finding mentors. This is only really a time commitment of 1 to 2 hours every couple weeks, and that's not a huge time commitment out of their week. And a lot of these students will be, in time, after a few years, will be students that actually came through the program and are now full-time workers. So there's a whole recurring benefit that we hope to have going on in a few years if you go ahead with this program. And then really, again, to answer the latter part of your question, making sure that they're the right person, match up, or the right mentor with the right mentee, that would be obviously a feel-out question. There's an interview process test to get selected for the program. And based off that, we believe that we'd be able to find the right cultural fit and the right persona fit for each person. But obviously, if there was discrepancies, there is the option of swapping around mentors through a, I guess not an offensive process, but more of a seamless process that is open for everyone.
Let me take that a step further, because I looked through the financials really quick. And again, you have time set aside for lots of time for the mentorship program, but a lot of, also what I think is, I think there's this misnomer that everyone who's in a senior position is actually a good coach or a good mentor. But I didn't hear anything that you talked about making sure that you've done anything to actually proactively coach someone to be a mentor. So I just maybe elaborate on more of that.
Absolutely, and so that second half of your question there is actually the reason why I want to go ahead with junior mentors. A lot of companies actually look at pairing up with, say, a VP level person, someone that's 10 years in their career. And we think going ahead with those analysts or those junior associates would be the best choice, because then they're really getting the hands-on, one-to-one relevant mentorship. But something, I guess, to answer your training portion would be having almost like empowerment workshops. When the program kicks off, these employees have an internal resource sharing session where they talk about what has worked in previous iterations of the program, through shared learnings and other avenues like that. It would be an iterative process as it goes, but absolutely having a couple workshops prior to it kicking off would be very important.
And just to briefly add on, one actionable item from that Hunter mentioned would be something like coaching agreements. So having that coach and the mentee both sign those agreements with the exact expectations outlined, so it's in writing for reference, and again mentioning everything that Hunter just spoke about as well. And again, this is a cool opportunity for those junior associates to prove their leadership skills and work towards that next promotion.
Okay, so walk me through the opt-out program. So let's say that there's a certain deadline, I have to opt out before then. If I don't, I guess I'm in the pools for promotion, but I have to prove myself. Let's say I don't get it. Walk me through the feedback process to make sure that I don't feel discouraged in the future to reapply or stay opted in.
Yeah, so it's a great question, because that is something that could come up, one of the other pain points. So one key piece to discuss here is that we're not completely aware of what your promotional process looks like at the moment. We don't have that information. But on the assumption that some of that may be on the back end, the employee may not completely be aware of how that assessment may occur. So you want to be transparent in that they're going to be put forward, given those qualifications for a variety of promotions. But that doesn't mean that when those promotions come up, you need to immediately go to that employee and tell them that they are in the process for this, and put them through this really lengthy promotion interview process, going through all their qualifications, because that would take a lot of time. So in that same way that a lot of promotions are done right now, where those who've stood out to their managers are kind of done behind the scenes, you're able to still do that, but ensuring that those who are qualified pop up automatically is going to be really key. And then in terms of addressing the feedback portion, now again, we don't know how your performance management occurs within your company, but addressing that in terms of performance management and ensuring feedback is happening in that way is going to be really important, because when an employee gets feedback from the performance manager, it should never be surprising to them if it's negative feedback. So that should be a continuous relationship, which would be a little bit separate and outside of our presentation today. Does that answer your question?
How much more time do we have?
A few minutes.
How do you address the potential perception that this is tokenism?
Do you mind defining that? Like,
Well, it could potentially mean that you're lowering the standards of hiring or retaining because you have a need to get more women.
So what I'd like to highlight here is we haven't set any sort of quota for you to hire women specifically, because we know that it's important to hire the most qualified candidate. What this is about is empowering females to enter the finance major first, empowering them to apply to your company so you have those talented females to select from, and then promoting them throughout the company. So we're not concerned about tokenism because there are no quotas, and there's no specific ways that you're going to be promoting these females as influencers from your company that we've discussed today. But it is just empowering people, and again, something that Maya and I love when we go to a company and we're able to see people like us walking around at recruitment events, walking around as our mentors, and to be able to connect on that level.
What happens if it doesn't work? What would you do?
I think that there's a lot of mitigations that you can do. It's depending on how you would really define that it's not working, but you can always learn from those experiences, right? And so you have different initiatives, and you're learning from those initiatives, what's working from those, taking advantage of the relationships that you have already created from that, and then you can also take continue following those industry trends, because like we outlined today, we have a lot of case studies. We want to use those industry best cases, and so that's something that you can do, is learn from those experiences.
Thank you.
Could you go back to your implementation timeline, please? Okay, thank you. So I see that your internship starts in 2027. Is this a different stream than your current internship programs?
Yes, this would be an additional, this would be, I guess, essentially the internship that follows after the, the portfolio management program and the shadow event, essentially. So this is over and above your existing.
And how can you leverage your existing interns, or now maybe like your our employees now, to integrate them into the mock program?
Absolutely.
1 minute warning, please. Thank you.
Just with the internships that we have outlined here, this is the timeline from it of starting in 2027 is the direct pipeline from those students that participated in the mock fund. And so that's like the third year students because they started off as first, second, and so they'll be second or third year students. And with your existing internship programs, we know that those are catered to some of the older students. And with your Ivy School partnership, that internship, so it's going to supplement them, but where we think that it can work with your existing internships is the promotional different streams that you're currently using, and then targeting those younger students who aspire to one day be part of those internships.
Thank you.
The question and answer period is up. Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I will ask everyone to leave the room so we can start preparing the next presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't forget, like, really, you're putting your hand there, Mark.
Alright, so, there they are.
Oh, good,
That's a
thank you.
delay.
That's okay.
It wasn't a delay, I'm all.
Okay, I'm good.
You guys want water too, or you guys?
You're not allowed.
Actually, need to the washroom.
Washroom?
Alright.
Do you mind if I just say like the deliberation speech? Actually, no, go to the washroom and we'll do it right back. Yeah, go ahead.
We had a Christian frame back up, that'd be good.
Can I go washroom? Is there time?
How much time do we have?
2-3 minutes.
2-3 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Vasculate.
I'm gonna run.
Keep fast.
Oh, is feedback right away?
So we're gonna do deliberation right now.
Oh,
20
yeah.
minutes.
yeah.
Oh, so we have 20 minutes, sorry, you
Um,
said 2-3, I was like.
No,
what?
when you said like how much time do you have to go to the washroom? That's what I thought.
No, he'll be quick.
Yeah.
You know.
No. So you guys have 20 minutes. I'm gonna leave.
Okay,
And then,
that's what I
yeah.
thought.
It's just because the gas go to the washroom. Okay. So I'm gonna. Is it okay if I start it after?
We have to stick with the.
With the time?
Stick with
Okay.
the time,
Yeah. But it's fine then. The 20 minutes
From that.
No stress. 20 minutes. We're professionals.
So now we make a decision, and then we need to provide them with feedback.
So we have to rate them, I guess, we have to do the scoring.
Yeah. But I'll explain that also when we're
Yeah,
back.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now we got the votes.
And
Mine
we
don't
can
work.
give them constructive feedback.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How's it going?
That's good. I'm lucky. Like everyone else having issues, but I'm lucky. Like nothing's happening.
Yeah, no, that's why I was asking, I heard
Yeah,
that
there's a lot of problems.
problems.
Yeah.
Alright, good luck.
Thank you.
I'm Melinda Gagne. I'm the head of marketing for IG Private Wealth Management.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul. I am strategy manager at Scotiabank.
Nice to meet you guys. So to kick off our presentation, we wanted to talk to you about today how the world is changing and Mackenzie Investments must as a result change with it. So what we're looking at in our presentation is obviously Mackenzie Investments wants to increase their female representation, and through attracting, developing and retaining talent, we want to help them do that. We see 3 core issues that they must address. The first one has to do with recruitment, the second with retention, and the third with development. When we think about what is driving these key issues, like thinking about recruitment first, a big issue in the finance industry is that a lot of women need to be exposed at an early stage in their career or their university careers to the financial industry. We know 27.5% of female students in business actually do study finance, but yet only 12% of women are represented in the industry. So we really need to be able to reach them early, get that exposure in order to be able to change that. The second thing we want to talk about is development. When we look at what Mackenzie Investment and the industry in general was facing, we saw that mentorship is really big. A lot of senior leaders will be able to give advice to these female juniors, but a lot of the time what matters is not only advice, but being able to execute and have that sponsorship behind the scenes that actually really leads to development. We know that the financial industry is built on relationships, and so this is a core focus that we want to focus on. In terms of retention, this really has to do with later on in your career. What we see as a huge problem for female identifying people specifically is the issue of maternity leave and work-life balance. Right now, across the industry, this is a huge problem, and we know that Mackenzie, while it has made some steps, we think that this can be strengthened a lot further. So, from our recommendations, we want to show you what we're going to do. Now, Annie, how are we going to begin by attracting these people?
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So let's start off by talking about attraction, and this is one of the most important things when we're thinking about students. And as early in your first and second year of university, you're getting more and more exposure to firms early on. So how can Mackenzie really make that good first impression and help attract students right away to help future down the line? So let's start off with some of the challenges that we need to help them tackle as a company as a whole. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this whole mystified field of finance to begin with. So despite students and generally in the finance industry making up around 25% or a quarter of the whole class as a whole, the finance industry as a whole is still seen as a system that is designed for men and by men specifically, which really deters students from wanting to actually join the industry and translate their studies into the industry as a whole. We see that there's a lot of the times high barriers to entry with the finance industry as well. So when you're thinking about all the technical terms, as a young student, as a 20-year-old student coming out of undergrad, it seems like something scary to join, and especially because you feel like that system already doesn't belong to you, already doesn't represent you, you're more likely to be deterred to have to learn all these technicalities and have to overcome these barriers to join the industry. So we think a big part of our campaign should be demystifying the industry and better building up exposure for students within in order to better understand what this work looks like. Secondly, we want to focus on actually being able to meet Mackenzie as a whole and understand your company culture. So being in the heart of Toronto and in the financial district, there's many other similar competitors who offer similar programs. We think what's important is to be able to differentiate ourselves. We're already a leader within the industry with over 30% of our employees being female and having that representation. But it's hard to be able to communicate that to students when you have other big players in the industry like Scotiabank or like IG Wealth Management that you have to compete against. So we think it's really important that you better understand the industry as a whole and make your relationship known to students. Let's talk a little bit more about what we would do in order to better represent and have our company be represented to students. So we think that we should take our existing partnerships to help attract students and take them in-house. So currently we have a collaboration with Ivy Business School in order to better represent women through our Women in Asset Management program. But we see a few key issues highlighted within this. The first of which is the exclusive field. So this program as a whole only welcomes 42 participants, and an overwhelming majority of them come from Western University. So already you're lacking your inclusivity towards other schools, and you're unable to have a big reach. Secondly, we've seen that this is likely going to be something that's firm agnostic as well. So there's 13 partners within the whole program, which means that you have around 3 students for every 1 firm, so the actual return that you're getting through this partnership is likely to be limited within the actual scope. You're also unable to show your differentiation as a company, again because you're pulled against all the other firms and all the other partnerships that you have. Comparatively, let's compare this to a case study where we see that the BCG Advanced program is something that is housed in-house for female participants in order to get to understand and learn this company a little bit better through exposure. So through this program, this 1-week virtual program, you're able to invite over 100 students from across all different US and Canadian universities to better understand your company. And you also have highly personalized relationships with a higher employee to participant ratio, so you better understand what that firm represents and the culture within that firm. So again, breaking down those barriers and having students better understand your company as a whole. So what do we think that this actually looks like in terms of for Mackenzie Investment? We think that you can implement your Step Up program where you're stepping up to the challenge of gender diversity and being able to really welcome the participants. So we think through this, you can better help support, thrive, empower, and pursue equity and diversity initiatives through our own internal house program. So there's really 3 key things that I want to focus on here. The first of which is hosting educational sessions throughout all our university partnerships with major universities within the area that have strong business programs. So we think we're not limiting ourselves to scope to just Western University, but you're opening up to all the top universities within the area that really has that talent pool of female students that we're looking for. And throughout the year, we want to offer educational programs to better help break that barrier. So you're better able to learn about finance terms, for example, what the fixed income group does versus the other groups within the area. And we think having that early exposure throughout multiple months rather than just a 1 or 2 day program is what's going to allow students to better understand the finance industry and have that easier step and transition within the industry. Secondly, we want to focus on relationship building throughout all these sessions as well. So we want to focus on, after every educational event, having things like networking sessions where you're able to better meet one-on-one with different associates at your firm to better understand what the culture is like, to maybe break down some of the stereotypes and ask about work-life balance and ask about any of the concerns that they have. We think having that personalized face-to-face interaction is again what makes students want to come to your specific company rather than all the other companies within the financial industry. And then finally, at the end of our educational programs, we want to host a year-end summit for some of the most promising students that come out and showed active engagement with our program. So again, this creates incentive for continual engagement and for students to come back to us and choose Mackenzie Investments over other firms. So we think being able to celebrate students' achievements for continually showing up and learning about finance is something that we want to celebrate as a firm and have that symbiotic relationship because it shows that we're dedicated to the students, but also celebrating the students have been dedicated to us and so show support for Mackenzie Investments. So we think through this program, we're better able to attract students right away and from the get-go to better have better recruitment strategies for our firm as a whole. Now that we've talked about that, how can we better develop our employees and keep employees within the system, Jonah?
Thanks, Annie. Development is a huge component of Mackenzie's strategy. It's one thing to attract employees, to get them hired, and to encourage their participation in the workforce, but it's another thing to develop them and ensure that they have the skills required in order to succeed for the long term. One of the important considerations that we realized in our research is that right now, women are often over-mentored yet under-sponsored. What does that mean? Let's break it down into its components. To us, mentorship refers to the education, the help, the teaching, providing resources for women at Mackenzie to succeed. And right now, although the firm is not perfect, it's doing a great job at this through IB's Women in Asset Management program, in addition to its other initiatives which aim to educate and encourage women to learn more about asset management and finance. However, another huge component of this is sponsorship. We believe that sponsorship is intentional acts on behalf of a junior employee by a senior employee to push forward a junior's career through opportunities like putting promotions on the table or mentioning their name when conversations about who's doing well or who's producing great work come about. Right now, we see that in finance, the industry itself is very much relationship driven. These relationships lead to business or deals or investing with an asset manager. And the same applies within an organization like Mackenzie. When the time to promote an employee comes about, managers will often ask, Who do you believe is doing good work? Who is supporting you and producing great results for the firm? And if a junior employee who is a woman does not have a sponsor to put their name forward when that conversation comes around, then that employee is at a disadvantage. That's why we believe that introducing a formal sponsorship program where women can have someone advocate for them when it comes to a promotion or other career advancement opportunities is critical to ensuring and enhancing the participation of women in Mackenzie's workforce. To do that, we hope to adopt a few different strategies. Our formal sponsorship initiative will consist of several components. First, we'll ensure that there are regular meetings between a sponsor and sponsee pairing. These will occur every month and will consist of coffees or lunches or other opportunities where employees and their sponsors can connect on a more both informal and formal level. This will allow the employees to develop a connection such that there's trust and a willingness to push for a junior employee once the opportunity for career advancement comes around. Another component of our sponsorship program consists of networking events. It's one thing to know your colleagues in a social setting, but it's another thing to be able to have genuine connections beyond merely working together, which is why we hope to implement a regular quarterly networking event for all participants within our sponsorship program. And last, we hope to make sponsees attending client meetings an important part of Mackenzie's client relationship management process. One of the things we notice is that 84% of high net worth females tend to value the diversity and representation in their asset managers. We also notice that women tend to prioritize personality and fit when working with an advisor. And so we believe that it's not only important to show that we are willing to represent our diverse workforce when meeting clients, but it's also important for our sponsees' development. By bringing them out to client meetings, we make them an integral part of the organization and the work we do, which will further contribute to women playing an integral role in Mackenzie's success. I also want to discuss our process of pairing sponsors and sponsees. One of the things we considered is that intersectionality and the idea of pairing people who face similar challenges and have similar identities is important. For example, there are certain challenges and barriers present in society today which are unique to certain individuals of certain identities. And so by pairing mentors, or sponsees and sponsors in a holistic perspective, we're allowing sponsors and sponsees to share and connect over the challenges which they may face as participants in the workforce and in employees in asset management today. Together, we believe these implementation details will contribute to a successful program which will improve the participation and engagement of women within Mackenzie's workforce. Altogether, we see this program playing out very linearly through an employee's career. The program will begin as a more mentorship-focused one, where junior employees, are paired with a more senior employee during the hiring process. These employees will be paired together. They will help each other out, seek guidance from the more senior one, and over time, through these regular sponsorship initiatives, we see the relationship turning into more of a sponsee-sponsor relationship, where the previously mentor is now willing to push for their sponsee in career promotions or other sorts of advancement opportunities. Eventually, we hope this plan will culminate in a situation where sponsors are willing to push for juniors and therefore address the development gap that currently exists. With that, I'd like to pass it off to Louise to talk about retention.
Jonah, thank you very much. Now, we've talked about the importance of bringing in the female talent into the organization, and we've talked about the importance of developing that. But one of the most critical parts that we need to face is retaining them. The good thing is that Mackenzie has a number of strengths in this front. As a matter of fact, it's an industry leader when it comes to women's participation in its workforce, at 30% as compared to a Canadian industry average of only 12%. And that's something to be proud of. Yet, that also means that there's still more work to do. Now, beyond what Mackenzie is doing just within its own firm, it's also important to realize that they also adhere to the United Nations standards to women's participation, and that's critically important because it makes it a pioneer in the space, not just in Canada, but in the entire world. And that will become increasingly more critical as time goes on. That's also enabled Mackenzie to have a very distinct advantage, which is to have certain funds that are geared towards investing in companies that have women at the helm of their organizations, enabling them to have yet another diversified stream of investment vehicles for its clients. Now, all of this is great, and it presents an opportunity for Mackenzie to further focus on areas of improvement, such as more gender parity within its own ranks, as well as addressing some of the biases that perhaps may limit not only women from entering Mackenzie, but to be able to stay as their lives progress. And with that, it'll be very important for Mackenzie to reflect the realities of women as they go through their professional and personal lives. And what would be the realizable benefits of having a strong strategy of maintaining these women within the organization? Well, the first one is an enhanced financial performance. It's been believed for a long time that having a diverse perspective at the decision-making table enables not only the identification of better investment opportunities, but it also enables an organization to be well alert to potential risks. The second one is having stronger client relations. As we've mentioned, there is a massive wealth transfer going on to the next generation. And what we see is that more and more women throughout the entire society are now in control of that wealth. And if Mackenzie is able to offer financial advisors that more of the client base can identify with, it only opens more opportunities for them for business. And perhaps the most important out of all of them is the preservation of human capital. These women are talented, they're extremely capable, but above all else, they have experience within the organization. And it would be the organization's best interest to retain that human capital and make sure it's within its ranks. So how could we do this? Well, the first one is career planning before someone decides to leave for maternity leave. Making sure that these career plans are structured and well tailored to their needs, as well as demonstrate a clear progression for them once they decide to return from maternity leave. We can also provide transition support in the event that perhaps they would like to try other types of careers beyond finance to other companies within the Power Corporation structure. Additionally, we can also start collecting more information and use that to define better guided key performance indicators, whether that be through conducting exit interviews or other data collection points, all which can be reviewed by a specialized committee to address the question. And the next one that we have is having a clear way to reintegrate these women back into the workforce, enabling them to have a clear path to be able to continue participating even once they've taken some time off to take care of their family. Now, you're wondering, I must imagine you must be wondering how we can implement that, and Renee will explain how.
Thanks, Louise. So, if we look at the KPIs and financials in terms of our implementation, there are a few key benefits that we've touched on quickly. The increased alignment with female high net worth individuals, increased employee satisfaction and decreased turnover rates, and increased female participation in both the applicant junior and senior level. In terms of our financials, we estimated a 5-year cumulative spend of $440,000, and if we're just looking conservatively at the decreased turnover, we estimate $14.5 million in savings over 5 years. Now, in terms of our recommendation timeline, we did have a few recommendations, so we phased it out over the 4 years, with year 5 and beyond allocated to continuously improving using the data and surveys we've collected to improve Mackenzie's initiatives. And then if we look at our risks and mitigations, there are a few we see here, but potentially the most important one is limited mentor prioritization. We know our investment professionals are very, very busy, and we know that mentorship often comes as an extracurricular activity. And in order to mitigate that, we really allocated only one mentee per mentor, and we see this as a feasible action plan in order to make sure we mitigate this potential risk. These are just our appendix slides, but if there are any questions, we are happy to take them now, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. First question is, I think I'd like you to be able to explain a little bit more from the financial perspective. So you touched upon that in your appendix. So how do you go from a 440K spent to over 40 million savings? How do you build that from a year-to-year budget perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So just given the constraints we were under for this competition, not a lot of information on the company itself, and also not a lot of time, what we really prioritized was the incremental costs we assumed there would be to the company. There are definitely a lot of hidden costs when we look at maybe employee time allocation and potentially the limits of the existing HR department, but what we really wanted to quantify for you guys here that was guaranteed and tangible was just for the attraction campaign. We had that weekend cost, so that included for example, participant food and beverage and participant transportation. The other key costs for the development initiative was mostly the sponsorship education we wanted to have. We really wanted to educate employees firm-wide on the difference between sponsorship versus mentorship, and so that was the cost we allocated there. In terms of our retention, a lot of what we decided could be kind of allocated to existing HR resources, but we understand that was a lot, so we added the additional team members' annual salary, just like a medium, what we assumed an annual HR salary could look like, and those are our yearly costs. In terms of the savings, this was mostly just a back of the napkin analysis, so I wouldn't say they're directly comparable. That's why we didn't calculate any sort of ROI on that calculation or on those cost spendings. But basically what we looked at was the cost of replacing an employee is for an experienced hire 4 times their annual salary. We understood that mostly turnover can come from work-life balance when you're later in the stage of your career, so that's why we chose to go with that figure. In terms of the rough number, there are 175 professionals, investment professionals at Mackenzie, which 30% of were women, so we just estimated over 5 years what that turnover rate would be. 43% was the industry average, and then we assumed the average salary from just the salary.com was $160,000, and that's how we got to 14.5 million. So definitely very rough, but we just wanted to illustrate what the potential impact could be.
Thank you for the presentation. Could you walk me through how do you select an employee, a female employee, to go and meet client prospects, I guess, because you mentioned client acquisition. So maybe you can walk me through that. How do you go and select one person and not be discriminating against others in this program?
Absolutely, and just to clarify, I assume you're talking about the client meeting component of our sponsorship program. So awesome. No, I think that's a very good concern. One of the strategies which we suggested was to begin by selecting a cohort of employees who we believe are polished enough and competent enough to be speaking with clients. And although there is the risk of bias coming into that, we hope to make these decisions in a panel format such that no one employee is able to subvert the selection process. From that pool of employees who we believe are capable of interacting and speaking with clients, we would then randomly select to ensure that no employee is given, say, special treatment, and so that everyone gets a share of the benefit which comes with speaking to clients and building those relationships early on in one's career.
Thank you. And then maybe briefly walk me through the communication internally, the change management within your current employees, what the program's about.
Absolutely. In regards to the sponsorship program in particular?
The overall program, the purpose of why we're doing this, why we're creating a sponsorship program from mentorship to sponsorship.
Absolutely. I think again, one of the key concerns which we realized in our analysis is that although we're able to attract women, and in fact, Mackenzie as an organization has a greater representation of women in their workforce compared to asset management in general in Canada. Although we're able to do that, we still struggle with developing and retaining our employees, as we touched on. And so I think our communications would begin with justifying our program. We're going to say that, well, although we're doing a great job, although it's not perfect, great job in attracting female employees, we want to ensure that our employees feel a commitment to the firm and feel welcome to stay and are supported throughout their career journey. And I feel as an employee, most employees would support that vision, so we're optimistic about buy-in. And then when it comes to the actual communications themselves, I think we'll begin simply through emails and other written forms of communication to educate employees, tell them about how this program is coming about, and then we'll open applications so that employees who are interested in participating can participate freely and voluntarily, so that they have a greater sense of commitment once they're actually part of the program. And then from there we can continue to regularly update existing employees and use this program as one of our selling points when we hire new employees, so that they know that we are committed to diversity and women's participation.
You talked a lot about internal branding. You talked a lot about making it clear to everybody. I've seen nothing on external branding. Like, how are we going to leverage that? And you're targeting a market to go after large portfolios run by women or women CFOs, but yet I saw nothing that even remotely talked about that in the presentation.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the external, so just to clarify, I guess the first part of addressing is a lot of what we focused on was externally facing in terms of like recruitment, because we saw that as the main exposure barrier, and so that's why we had our first recommendation focused on engaging young female students through like educations in our program like early on in their first 2 years of university. But are you talking more about like acquiring like clients, or like what was the external?
Some part of that, because we're talking about the retention part. Obviously, you want their portfolios to grow. So how would you mix in that to allow those that have progressed to the organization the ability to go and attract a larger client base? You have to do something to merge it. It's one thing to retain them, but you've got to make it so that they can earn it there. I think that part for me, I don't see a connection yet to how you would address that to ensure that it's profitable for them to stay with the organization.
Yeah, I definitely think that from our understanding of the industry, case facts, and our research, one of the trends they highlighted that Mackenzie really wanted to capitalize on was just the growing female wealth and kind of like female, female participation in the workforce from like other aspects like external to Mackenzie. And so what we really saw, part of like what Jonah was talking about, was when we're able to show our commitment to diversity as a firm, our commitment to diversity of thought, not only to diversity of like representation or like identity, we see that a lot of the big clients that we want to kind of go after are like the high net worth individuals. Female high net worth individuals as like a demographic is increasing in size in terms of like representation from like say if are like an investment manager and you want like a client, females in senior leaders in other companies are also increasing proportionally. So we definitely think that just by being able to show our commitment and kind of like when you're going to these client meetings, communicating, or like even who you're sending to these client meetings communicates that, we didn't necessarily see kind of a need to like promote it, because we thought that might be seen as like inauthentic, but generally just like operating and building relationships with everything as part of a whole new brand strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
How do we, excuse me, how do you ensure that this gender equity initiative is cascaded appropriately across 16 boutique divisions, but maintaining the 16 boutique groups their own autonomy?
1 minute warning, last question please.
Of course, this is an excellent question. I think what is important to realize here is that we've identified these different challenges that happen at different stages within the career of the women that decide to join this profession and this industry. And these are challenges that are faced throughout the industry and of course throughout our boutiques. So the purpose of the strategy is to be able to fit and to be adaptable to the nuanced differences of each one of these boutiques. We understand that they have their own manners of operating, and we understand that they also have their own challenges. However, we do think that by setting the standard across all of them, we're going to be able to best address the issues and the challenges that prevent women as of right now from fully integrating, especially at the later levels of their career. Now, with that being said, we will enable and will continue to receive the feedback from the different boutiques to see if they're facing specific challenges and how we can come up with solutions. So in essence, what this is an iterative process. And we also understand that we don't have all the solutions to the problems as it stands today, but that by beginning this initiative, we'll be able to collect that information and refine it as needed.
The Q&A period is over. Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I will ask everyone to leave the room so we can set up the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Are you guys' iPad charge good? Like, you guys need to try this anytime soon? Yeah? I'm trying to move this over here because I don't want people to trip.
Yeah. It's 10 to 3.
10 to 3.
What time's your flight?
I have to be there at 6 o'clock.
Oh, you have to be there.
Oh, okay.
Which means I have to be there at 5. I don't know if the airport traffic looks like right now.
Monday is probably, the weather's not bad.
Are you
Drinking here.
Wherever this reaches are, lastly, this reach out
Thank
to
you.
the front. The team needs to be taken. Alex. Oh, that's true. I have to see.
Hello, my name is Skander and I will be your timekeeper for the day. I will show you warning signs where there are 10, 5, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds remaining. I will say stop, after which the team must stop talking immediately. Afterwards, a 10-minute Q&A period will follow. I would like to remind you that all teams must present for a minimum of 15 minutes, and all team members must speak during the presentation, but not necessarily during the Q&A. Audience members, we ask that you please place your phones on silent mode and remain seated in the room for the duration of the full presentation and Q&A period. I will now let the judges introduce themselves. Once they are done, you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Green. I work for Brother, Vice President of Finance.
My name is Dr. Robignac. I work for a company in Spain called North. I'm the CEO.
My name is Melinda Gagné. I'm Director of Marketing for IG Private Wealth Management.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul, work as a strategy manager for Scotiabank.
In an industry known for male dominance, investment banking, sales and trading, asset management, you name it, finance is always known as the world for males. But what if a company wants to make it a world for females, to empower females to make it a better place for every one of us? Ladies and gentlemen, we're Amity Consulting. I'm Natalie and here are my teammates Flora, Austin, and Vinci. Today we're going to present on a case on McKinsey on how it could break the vicious cycle to catalyze change and to make the world a better place, not only for females but for every single one sitting in the room. Let's get started. The key question that comes to our mind when we first take a look at a case is how could a company effectively empower females to focus on an inclusive and cooperative environment and working culture for everyone in the company. And when we take a look at the whole situation, we realize three main questions that we would like to answer. The first one is how to attract women if they have different types of commitments and also reasons to quit the workforce. And the second question is how could women try to have more access to career development and also mentorship programs through their career journey. Well, the third question comes on different structured mentorship programs and also sponsorship programs for women in particular. And the two situations that we would like to propose today would be to promote returnship to work, and the second one is a 360 leadership development program. And by these two strategies, we hope to achieve a parity by 2029. So how are we going to do it? Before taking a look at our strategies, we hope to take a look at the situation and insights. So when we compare McKinsey's women ratio to different industry women average, we realize that the company is actually very strong at promoting and empowering women. For instance, it has more than 10% attractive rate of more women in the candidate pool, and also a 6% of higher promotion rate of retaining rate for women. By these few statistics, we can see that McKinsey has great effort in promoting and also empowering women and taking a lead comparing to industry average. However, if we take a look at a case when comparing to industry average numbers for males, the situation doesn't look very optimistic. For instance, we see that there is a 30% fewer attractive rate for women in candidate pool for McKinsey, and while also there is also a 5% lower promotion rate for women. What does this conclude? We believe that McKinsey is currently lagging behind on attracting and developing female talents. So when we focus on these two sectors, we believe that we can actually use a female's career to illustrate the situation. Let's take a look at a case for Chloe, who is a 30-year-old woman and in her early to mid-career. We see that the first pain point that she encountered would be on attractiveness to go back to the workforce. Being in her 30s, she's actually thinking of having a family, trying to have kids, and it's a very big, major commitment for us women. So after having a baby, she's considering just quitting the workforce once and for all and actually not joining AM anymore. However, if we are able to tackle this pain point, she actually receives great implementation in terms of retaining and also in mentoring. And these are the points that we mentioned that McKinsey is actually doing great in. So while coming to the last point, which is developing, we believe that there is a currently lack of opportunities, especially for mentorship programs. And that's why we believe that these are the two field sectors that we should focus on a career for women. While comparing our strategies with other potential strategies that other teams may have, we believe that these two strategies will be the ones that have greatest impact and also feasibility. The first one is Returnship to Workplace, while the second one is Leadership Development 360. So what are some of the other strategies that we may think of? The first one is having different networking events and also training. All of these are relatively easy to implement, but they have low impact and also relatively less empowerment for women in particular. While some of the programs like Executive Sponsorship Program and Leadership Mobility actually have lower feasibility because it has greater burden on other colleagues as a whole. Thus, these two strategies we propose will be the ones that have highest impact and feasibility. I would like to pass on the time to Flora to further talk about it.
Thanks, Natalie. Now that we've narrowed down our strategy, we actually propose two main solutions. First is the Returnship to Workforce, which is targeting re-recruitment for mid-career women. So let me delve into the strategy. First, we actually analyzed that McKinsey is actually facing low female engagement in the applicant pool. We can see this from the data on the slide. For McKinsey female average, it is particularly low in terms of percentage in candidate pool for women compared to the industry men average, as well as for applications for women. So we hope to target these two items and KPIs when we're proposing a strategy for the returnship. So we try to target women with career breaks for rejuvenating the mid-career talent. So we can see that from data that we've looked online, actually 43% of finance professionals for women take breaks in US and Canada. So that's actually almost half. So we also try to look at the career stages at which women actually take career breaks. And almost half of them come from the experienced professional, which is around 5 years into their career. So we can see that this is mainly because more family commitments come into place, and also perhaps there are some other situations which demand the female talent compared to men, which may value their career a bit more. So we think that McKinsey can actually address these challenges of the mid-career women who are actually willing to rejoin the AM workforce after a break due to family circumstances. However, we also analyzed that actually 45% of women feel that their career is actually damaged after taking a career break. So as McKinsey, who values women's empowerment so much, we try to break down these issues furthermore. And we found that some of the main issues include anxiety about keeping up with the new skills, they're being paid less than before the break, and their career progression is less mobile than previously. So we established a returnship program targeting these exact issues, which differentiate us from the returnship programs that are on the market. So here's a program draft for how it will actually work. So for week 1 to 4, there will be reskilling training targeting some of the key skills within asset management, for example, some of the key compliance updates, and also Bloomberg terminal skills that they may have forgotten after having a break for so long. And we also propose hybrid working options, which is very important for women who have taken career breaks. This is especially because perhaps they have a kid at home that may need pickup from school, or they need to cook lunch for, which may have some deterrence in the normal working place, but we try to accommodate this in McKinsey. And we also propose project-based upskilling, which is definitely important if they want more career progression. And they will actually have regular check-ins with their program manager to check on their progress. We also propose support systems, which is especially important for women in a male-dominated space. So they have flexible work schedules as well as a cohort community, so that they can have a stronger bond with the women within McKinsey, and that will actually improve their work satisfaction as well. So we think that this, all in all, can help McKinsey address the challenges of the mid-career women. So how will this partnership actually come to life? So we actually proposed a recruitment partnership with the gender parity company Versify. So we're actually leveraging our parent company's prior relationship with Versify, which is the Women for Capital Markets program. However, we actually saw that Versify has a new program about returning to the Bay Area and a returnship program, which is actually just launched in September 2024. And we think that is a perfect opportunity to help McKinsey pipeline their candidates into the returnship program and actually encourage their women engagement. And with this strategy, we hope to increase 10% in female applications in the first year, and that will actually accumulate to 500 new applicants, and actually a 40 to 45 increase in the candidate pool in 3 years' time. And we believe that this is a low risk, high reward investment, and we'll explain on the impacts with my colleague later. Now I'll pass the time to Austin to talk about our second strategy.
Thank you, Flora. And moving on to our second strategy, we're hoping to develop a program called Leadership Development 360, which means a 360-degree development on the core skills as well as leadership competencies that a leader would need in the AM industry. We're helping them build the skills so they can progress into senior leadership roles with greater confidence as well as these skills. So moving on to the few problems that or core competencies that they're lacking right now, we see that there is actually a lack of mentorship and sponsorship programs, especially for these leaders, up-and-coming leaders. And the second problem is actually unconscious bias and gender stereotyping. So therefore, our strategy aims to deal with these two problems through this rotational program. This rotational program is different from any other rotational program in the market, which is usually 6 months in length, and this program is actually longer, which is 1.5 years in length, aiming to provide the key competencies as well as day-to-day training for these employees going through a mid-career progression. So therefore, tackling the first pain point, we're actually providing them with personalized training programs and leadership opportunities and check-ins with senior leaders in the company to build their confidence. And secondly, we're tackling this bias through increasing in diversity in their recruitment process and also improving their visibility in the organization, so to increase their chances of sponsorship with senior leaders in the company. So moving on to a rotational structure, they're usually going through three rotations of each 1.5 years, and we actually cater to different employees within the organization because we see there are not only investment professionals but actually back office staff, which also need this kind of exposure in the organization, and actually they're the vast majority of the organization. So therefore, we have 2 tracks, including the investment professional track, as well as the back office track, where firstly for the investment professional track, they're actually rotating in 3 of the 16 investment boutiques, for example, across different asset classes and cross-functional groups, for example, sustainability, as well as for the back office track, they're rotating across departments such as operation, risk, compliance, etc. So after this, we're aiming to develop or design a program that caters to their skills and builds on these skills. For example, in the first rotation, we're trying to onboard them to the program and have role-specific training. But in the second and third rotation, we're trying to assess their skills and potential to be leaders in the organization in the long run. So we're focusing on building cross-functional skills and integrating skills as well as having a capstone project for the final evaluation with our senior leaders. With this, we're trying to get an impact of around 7 to 8 out of our first cohort of 15 employees to actually reach leadership by 2030. For example, with our persona, Chloe, who is actually a 30-year-old early to mid-level employee, she actually goes through 2 stages, which is the recruitment stage as well as selection stage. They're actually having an internal application open to 1,300 employees across Mackenzie, and then mostly targeting women. And through the selection stage, using performance reviews as well as different assessments, they eventually extend offers to 15 and eventually 40 in 2029 for up-and-coming female leaders. And during this whole mentorship as well as rotational program, we actually match up mentors with them. For example, Chloe is matched up with Vanessa, who provides her with career advice, leadership training, as well as sponsorship during her progression. And then we also provide quarterly leadership workshops, which align with the key skills that asset management industry is actually looking for. For example, strategic thinking, as well as thinking of different innovative ideas to implement in the day-to-day as a senior leader. And finally, we're generating impact. And we're focusing on 2 main categories, including leadership development and also internal mobility. And in the third cohort and beyond, at around 2029, we're aiming to get a woman in leadership that could actually rise to 25 to 30% by that year. And then also internal mobility, which is the rate of internal moves as well as internal promotions to a rate of around 48% by that time. So now let me pass the time to Vinci to talk about our impact, implementation, as well as risk.
Thank you, Austin. In terms of risks, we have identified 3 key risks that we might encounter when we implement our plan. First is that women might face restriction and friction when they come back to the workforce, and that's why to mitigate that we have a very complete and very structured onboarding programs that will be a part of those two routes, either both the 16-week program and also our 1.5-year program that Austin had mentioned. And participants might be overburdened by Leadership Development 360 because they're taking on a lot of responsibilities in that 1.5 years, experiencing different type of work nature. And so that's why we have, for both programs, we have installed a mentorship program where each participant will get a buddy that will support them both mentally and technically. In terms of implementation, we expect most of the plan will be implemented within the first 3 years to 4 years, and with the 5th year to be evaluating and long-term sustainability. And so for the first strategy, first year will mostly be on research and design, where our first cohort will launch at the end of first year, and then each year we expect to increase the size of our cohort from 20 to 60 at year 5. As for our second strategy, as cohorts are going to stay with the company for longer periods of time, and so we are expecting to engage with 3 cohorts in total for the next 5 years. In terms of impact, for the first strategy, we expect that after 5 years, we're going to achieve a 52% of total talent pool being women. And then for our second strategy, Leadership Development 360, we are going to achieve 21% women participation in leadership development and 23% for women participation in internal mobility. And as for cost estimates, it's going to be around $2 million per year at year 5 for our Returnship to Workplace program, and for Leadership Development 360, it will be around $5 million per year by the time of 29.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess maybe we can start on slide 26. I'm struggling to see how you're going to get all the way to parity, because we're talking parity, truly a balance between male and female employees by 2029. So we're at roughly 1,300 employees. Today we're about 400 women, 900 men. We're saying in 3 years you're really going to shift that. So am I going to turn over almost 300 and 250 of the male population, or is it just?
Yeah. So
I'm kind of struggling with that.
Thank you for your question. So I think that's a very valid point. But while we were looking at the case, we established that the priorities of the company was actually divided into attracting new female asset management professionals, and also developing their skills in terms of asset management for females as well. So we tried to look at the KPIs for these 2 aspects. And for these 2 aspects, we tried to define parity in terms of equal performance for men and female in the same KPI, instead of the number of employees, because we understand that in a 5-year plan, it's quite difficult to actually reach the same number of employees. But that being the ultimate goal of the company, Mackenzie, we try to first reach parity in terms of the different KPIs, in terms of attracting talent and also developing talent.
Okay.
So yeah. So I hope that, so from our KPIs, for example, in the first strategy, which is the number of female applicants in the pool, we expect to reach 45% in the 3rd year, and also for our second strategy as well, we try to reach that for the KPI. So I hope that explains it.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Think about the initiative and how it links to the organization's mission. What is that linkage, and how are you furthering the company's mission based on this strategy?
Yeah, sure.
So believes that some of the goals that the company is currently having, for example, as those mentioned in the case, will be have a higher female empowerment rate, which is seen by not only on junior employment but also especially on the senior executive side. And by having these two strategies, what we are mainly focusing on is not actually those that are freshly graduated from school, but actually those in the early to mid careers, those that are almost going to have a senior executive position, but perhaps due to different personal commitments or family issues decided to step down. And we believe that this is very important to the company's mission, especially on strengthening the C-suite and also senior executive position to have more female representation and also to make the company actually more balanced and also reaching parity as we mentioned.
And to elaborate a little bit, I think one of the key data that was mentioned in the case is that the turnover rate for female professionals is much higher compared to men. I think it was at 40-something% compared to less than around 30% for men, which is we think is a very high number for asset management, which is something that requires a lot of technical skills. So once you leave the industry, it's very easy to lose all of the skills that you developed before because the market changes so quickly. So that's why we think that targeting the reemployment of women and also engaging them in developing their skills is definitely something that can create a virtual cycle for Mackenzie, especially given that actually their fresh graduate recruitment and their balance for women in that aspect is actually quite strong. But because the attrition is so high, it ends up that the C-suite and also the leadership is not as engaged compared to the fresh graduates. So that's why we propose these two strategies to help target that problem for Mackenzie. Yeah.
If I can allow to ask further upon his point is why is it important to have diversity and have retention and parity?
Other than the mission that Flora as well as Natalie have mentioned on the side of the company and building a diverse workforce, we also believe there actually is demand side pressure from the users of Mackenzie, for example. There are actually an increase in different female investors as from the case to provide different kind of data on how much they're being increased, their life expectancy increasing, and also the demand for that. We believe that having more investment portfolio professionals within the company actually helps them build this culture of empowering female investors as well. So it also helps build on the balance sheet of the company and increasing the AUM.
Yeah, and to add a little bit, I've done some research on female investors before, and it shows that actually there are sometimes, for example, about fee structure or investment potential and return, they tend to have a less clear understanding compared to male investors. And that statistic shows that having female AM professionals who understand the mind of a female investor can actually help articulate the impacts of the investment and also pitch their Mackenzie's products to female investors, which is a growing segment, more articulately. So we think that that's something that having female AM professionals can bring to the table compared to not having as much diversity. And also we think that with diversity, of course, you will have a lot more different opinions. And in AM, which is a market with like to have an edge, you need to have very innovative ideas, and the more diversity, the more ideas you can have. So that's why we think that empowering women is definitely a way to achieve that. Yeah.
Maybe some sort of a follow-up question. So more on your 360 development program. How do you make sure that women will embark in these types of programs? So it's open to everyone, which is great. So how do you make sure that the ones that you're targeting will actually be not favored but participate in the extent that you're expecting? And how do you make sure as well, with so much movement in the company, knowing that stability and trust that is required from clients with their asset manager will be preserved with so much movement within the company and within the different boutiques?
Perhaps I could answer the first half of the question. We're trying to build that trust, also trust between our mentors and also mentees. So as to foster the culture of women investment professionals actually staying in the company and growing with the mentorship program for 1.5 years and even above that. So we're trying to pair senior leaders within the company with actually mentees, for example, Chloe herself, actually providing her with personalized career navigation advice as well as sponsorship. So she has that, she's being advocated in different parts of the organization. So she's being empowered throughout all of the stages.
And to answer the second part of your question, I think that's definitely a risk that we've identified because of course, like with half a year rotation, it's definitely plausible that some projects that are not finished can have one of the important team members removed. So we think that with sufficient handover and also very clear communication with the employees manager is definitely something that's very important in implementing this program, especially given that we think that this program is definitely made for female employees who have great potential to actually progress in their career, and we can actually choose them perhaps based on their performance indicators and then match them with the C-suite professionals or some of their mentors. And so I think definitely very clear communication and having a very structured program like ours is definitely going to help in the handover process when they switch from team to team. And I think having a very clear guideline as to which teams do what, which is definitely something that can help in this process as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Great. Thank you. Maybe if I have time for one more. Have you looked at, so are we developing the leadership development 360 internally or externally, or?
We'll be developing the program internally within ourselves, and also the senior leaders will also be paired within the organization. So we're trying to be as inclusive within the organization as possible, and so as to be more aligned to the company culture.
Have you considered partnering with other firms or any other credible organization in the women's space to accelerate that process or actually build upon the success of those programs?
1 minute warning. Last question, please.
I think that's a very good question. For our first strategy, we partnered with Best FI because they actually have an ongoing relationship with IGM Financial. But for our second strategy, because Mackenzie has so many different boutiques within their organization, focusing on different asset classes, we thought that developing it internally would actually have more flexibility in terms of allocating it in the front office as well as the back office, which is very specific to the AM industry, which we may worry there's some mismatch if we actually find a vendor. And because the hiring process or internal mobility is something Mackenzie already emphasizes on, we think that this would be investment for the long term. So we think it's worth it. Yeah. Thank you.
The Q&A period is up. Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I will ask everyone to leave the room so we can start the deliberation period. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for
Good
the
luck.
time today.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.